Welcome to Educate, Inform, and Challenge. My name is Teresa MacLennan. I'm Executive Director of the Women and Children's Shelter of Barrie. We are so glad that you've joined us today. As you know, the purpose of our show is to talk about the lives and experiences of women. We talk about women experiencing domestic violence, human trafficking, women in business, women in leadership. And we really like to dive into those experiences just to encourage and inform our community really about the lives of women. Before we begin and we talk to our wonderful guest today, we do want to acknowledge and thank our Indigenous community and partners. We thank you for allowing us to share in this space, to have these conversations on these traditional territories. Thank you. So today I am honored to be talking with Bryn Hamilton, who is our newest City of Barrie councillor. Welcome, Bryn. So nice to talk with you today.
Thank you, Teresa. I appreciate you having me here today.
So before we start to talk about your journey into this new adventure, maybe do you want to just share all the multiple hats that you wear with our community, just so they can get to know you a little bit more?
Sure, I'd love to. Some days it's hard to keep track of what hat I'm wearing, so I'll do my best here. But first and foremost, I think my job is to be a mom. I have two kids, age 9 and 11. There's been no school or training for that, but I'm learning as we go. But otherwise, I started my career actually in healthcare. I worked clinically for a number of years. I worked in the cancer center, both in Toronto at Sunnybrook Hospital, and then at our very own Royal Victoria Hospital as well. But I love school. I always wanted to go back and learn. I have the student debt to show for that, but I ended up getting my master's of health science and health administration. And I now currently work as the Director of Governance and Integration with the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care. And then, of course, as you mentioned, I now proudly also wear my Ward 10 City of Barrie councillor hat.
That is a lot of hats that you wear, and what an eclectic education, work experience that you bring now into your role as the new City of Barrie councillor. When you were younger, what were your dreams for the future? Did you have ideas about this is what I want to be?
Never. I don't think once it crossed my mind growing up that I was going to be a local politician or be involved in municipal politics. In fact, I probably shied away from political conversations, when I was young and even in my teen years. Even now, I don't know if I consider myself a typical politician. For me, growing up, my dreams and goals always centered around learning as much as I could, finding the things and doing the things that excited me. Physical and mental health were always a passion of mine. So I'm not surprised I ended up in healthcare. And although I was always focused on education and career, to me, life experience was just as important. I'm constantly pushing myself. So I always set up new goals, new challenges, small or big, daily, yearly. I'm always sort of pushing for that new height for myself. And it's the feeling of accomplishment, I think, is what I've always, inspired as a little girl, sort of would have been chasing for many years. It's just that feeling and that sense of achievement.
Wow. So how did you land to becoming the Ward 10 councillor? Like what was the light for you that you thought, I think I want to pursue that?
It wasn't until I had a family and I knew that Barrie was where I wanted to be. I had grown up in Barrie, born and raised, but it wasn't until I decided I was going to stay planted here and raise my family and call it home that I knew I wanted to get involved in the community. So I started to think about what do I have to offer to give back to the community that's raised me and now that I'm raising my family in. I did have a small taste of politics. My father was elected mayor of Barrie in the early 2000. I think it was 2003. And I remember at the time, I would have been 23. I thought, why does he want to do this? It seemed like a whole lot of headache and a lot of work. So it was probably about a decade later when I started thinking, how do I give back? And probably when I paid my first property tax bill, that I took an interest in what was happening sort of at the local political level. And my dad tried to convince me out of it, I will say, and he succeeded. I considered running 4 years ago in a previous election, and my dad and many other people actually were able to convince me out of it. They questioned, how are you going to raise a family? How are you going to continue to build your career? How are you going to have time to be on council? You can't do it all. So it created doubt, and I didn't run back then. And then this time around, there was still some doubt, but I just thought, I love a challenge. People still said to me, how are you ever going to do this? How are you going to manage it all? And I thought, you know what, I can. I love when someone tells me I can't do something. It just motivates me a little bit more to say, well, why can't I? Other people are doing it and I'm no different. So let's give it a shot. And so here I am.
Yeah, and I did not realize that family connection for you. So I think, are we talking about Rob Hamilton?
We are, yes.
Yes.
We share that broadly because, as you know, politics always comes with a history and different opinions, but yes.
Yeah. Okay. And I am born and raised in Barrie as well, right? So sometimes I catch myself in conversations with people and I'm like, oh, I remember when the population of Barrie was 41,000. And of course I'm aging myself as I say that, right? But and so I appreciate you sharing that. So you definitely had an influence in terms of municipal politics for sure. I'm really curious about, when we think about as women and we think about the past that maybe we're interested in, and then we hear there can be systemic voices, outside of us telling us we can't do it. And then of course our own voices telling us that we can't do it. It's an interesting piece that I'm wondering if it's different for men and women wanting to pursue municipal politics and having people say, well, how could you possibly do that? You've got young children, right? Mm-hmm. And if that messaging would be the same for men as compared to women.
I don't think so. And I actually had this conversation the other day with some council members, and I don't think any of the male counterparts that I've spoken to had that same initial reaction from people when they thought of, about getting involved in local politics. I think there's a certain expectation as a female, as a woman, as a mother, that doesn't necessarily carry with men, right? I think on the home front, and it's not easy. I mean, a lot of what people warned me about, I will say, is true. It's very difficult to balance being a single mom, being in charge of school pickup and drop off, being in charge of helping with homework, taking the lead on meals, the never-ending laundry, tidying the house. I mean, there's all these sort of innate expectations, I would think, that comes with being a mom and with being a woman and female. So I think, there's a lot of people that have this perception of, well, you can't do that all, you can't take that on, or something else will have to give, right? You'll have to give up being, a mom to a certain extreme, or you won't be able to go to all the sports events or the parent teacher volunteers. And I think that's false. I mean, and it's a narrative that we need to move beyond. I think we create these own boundaries by creating these barriers, really, that don't need to be there. But I think, from my perspective, it takes a lot of commitment and determination to move beyond that. You have to really want something yourself. So for me, when I mentally decide I want to do something, I commit to it. And so I think 4 years ago, I personally hadn't made that mental commitment yet. So I allowed those external voices influence me. And then I got to a certain point in my life where I thought, doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. If I have the confidence to do this and I know I can do it and I want to do it, that's all it takes, right? A personal desire. That's it.
That's amazing. It's going to be so encouraging to so many women who are listening today who might feel that there are systems around them that are going to create barriers. But what we know so much here in the shelter, I mean, women come in and they've experienced abuse and human trafficking. There's a negative narrative that plays over, it can play over in any of us. Absolutely. In our heads, that we are creating our own barriers to success or trying the things. And even if we fail, but still trying, and I think as women, when you have other people saying to you, how could you possibly take something else on, right? it registers. And and like you say, you didn't step forward 4 years ago, because of those things, right? And the questioning and the doubting, right? And so I'm curious, did you just decide, you know what? No, I can do this and I will do this and I'm going to pursue it?
Yeah, to be honest, I think it was as simple as that. I made up my mind and I listened to everybody's skepticism about it. And I sat down. I mean, this was not an easy decision. And I sort of sat down and thought, what are the things that I could sacrifice? What are the things I could let go? And why do we put so much pressure on ourselves to do everything, right? I've got family, I've got supports. I'm lucky. Take advantage of the supports that you have in your life. I feel like so many women are afraid to ask for help, are afraid to show weakness. We're trying to keep up with everyone, right? You're on social media, you're seeing everybody, looking like they're living life to the fullest and doing it in such a perfect way. It causes you to doubt yourself. And so for me, it's really forgetting about other people's opinions, other people's experiences, what other people may or may not be doing, or other successes they may or may not be achieving, and really focus on what's going to make me happy every day. What is it that I want to do to wake up and be happy and look forward to?
And I love what you just said, Bryn. And I think what I take away from that as well is, there is, honestly, society has expectations about the roles of women. We are the nurturers, the caregivers, primarily for the children. We take care of when kids are sick at school. There's pretty defined roles, right? And being able to question those roles and say, well, if I have a desire to become a City of Barrie councillor and pursue that, I may need to give up one of those roles that typically you think that I'm responsible for. And how can we share what the new roles and responsibilities will look like? And I love that, because it is so great for us to question what we traditionally think are the roles between men and women.
Right.
Because that is what has kept women from not pursuing municipal politics, as an example, right? And breaking that ceiling, right? We'll know that we have the opportunity and the capability. We are equipped to be the municipal councillors. And how do we work together with our families and change your perception of what it is that you think I should be doing, right?
Exactly.
So
it all starts with us, to be honest, right? But it's having that will and that confidence to speak out. And I think it's a great example for kids, in my own kids, right? And I've kind of let go of the things that I didn't love doing. Cooking. I know I rarely cook now, and that's okay. I'm not afraid to admit it. I'm not the first parent to volunteer at a school function. I love my kids' school, but I don't need to be that one either. So I think sometimes it's letting go of what you think you should be doing and actually doing the things you want to do. So for me, that's been a huge life lesson. But I would say every day you need those reminders, right?
Yeah. And I think I agree. And as women, we have to remind each other about that and challenge each other. So my goodness, our first half of our show went by very, very quickly. So we're going to take a very, very quick break. For our viewers, please stay with us. Join us as we'll be right back to continue our conversation with Bryn Hamilton. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Educate, Inform, and Challenge. We are having a great discussion today with Bryn Hamilton, who is our new Ward 10 City Councillor. And we're just talking about her journey, about municipal politics, how she got there. And, you know, some of those external and internal barriers that she overcame to decide to run for municipal politics and was successful. So welcome back, Bryn. We're going to jump right back in. So let's talk about how it has been for you as kind of the newest woman on Barrie City Council. We've typically had a fairly higher male dominated Barrie Council, and we're of course just keep on working on, you know, evening that out and having more women voices at the table. How's the journey been going in terms of your transition to that council role?
Yeah, you know what? I think it's been a smooth transition. And I think council, we've got a real cordial group of people around the table, which has been very, very nice. I think we all come with a feeling that we all offer an equal voice. So far, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so far, I think we all 10 of us sitting around the table feel like we've got an equal voice, but different perspectives. And I think that's what's so important, because that's what makes governing bodies and decision-making tables strong, right? You want people with different opinions. You want people with different backgrounds, different life experiences, different genders, of course. We've got 3. I would love to see that balance out even a little bit more, but we'll take the 3 women this year. We need to embrace diversity. We need to respect differing viewpoints, because that's how effective decisions are made. Ultimately, when I look at city council, it should be reflective of the community we're serving, right? So you want to have representatives that are reflective of the diversity within the city of Barrie as well. So we're slowly getting there. I think there's more strides to make, but certainly I think we're tackling those barriers a little bit each year.
I'm curious how it works, really, because I've always wondered this. So let's say it doesn't matter the makeup of what the council looks like right now. We have women and men, you know, representing. Let's say the conversation on the table is about community safety in the downtown core. As a woman who sits on council, are you able to share, as a woman, this is what my experience has been when I've accessed the downtown? I'm only using that as an example, yes. But this is my experience as a woman accessing the downtown at 2 o'clock in the morning, that I don't feel safe. Is that appropriate? Like, is that a voice that you can bring to the table, representative of course, your Ward 10, but as a woman?
Absolutely. And I think that's the strength right now that we're seeing in council, is that we are all offering those different viewpoints. And downtown is a great example, because I do think there's different perceptions of downtown and the feeling of safety. And I think, you know, even my experience may differ from yours as a female. But certainly, I do think between men and women, and safety is a great example, we're going to bring different perceptions and different conversations to that topic. And I think council has to value both, right? They've got to see both sides to every story. They've got to see both ends of the spectrum. Again, that's how it's going to shape and influence the decision making on that table, to really look at how do we find appropriate solutions, right? And how do we ensure that everybody feels safe, for example, in the downtown core. So yeah, I think they've embraced that so far, and I think that's the role that I play, that Anne-Marie plays, that Amy Cursor plays, is making sure that we've got appropriate representation and that the female voice is being heard appropriately.
Yeah. That's wonderful. And it is really refreshing and lovely to hear that there is an openness with, this council, that there is an openness to hearing and wanting to learn and grow, right? And because there are so many groups and individuals in the community who need to have their voice represented. And if I'm curious about this too, so if they're not represented on city council, how do you tap into those different groups to know what it is that they think about something?
Such a good question. So what I've done, I have a background in governance. That's what I do for my career, actually. So this is another passion of mine in making sure you've got appropriate representation and diversity and differing perspectives. So I've actually assembled a Ward 10 council. We've got 10 people from across Ward 10. I represent Ward 10 to sit on that table with me. And they are my input and feedback, right? Because I can't represent the entire Ward 10 on my own. I am one voice, and my perspective could be different as a single mom than somebody else's, right? So that table is really valuable for me. I bring questions to them all the time in terms of traffic or safety issues, what their concerns are, what their priorities are, so that I can bring their voices to City Council. So I don't know if any other wards are doing that. I've looked to other municipalities that have done that with some success. I think some of my colleagues are looking to me to say, how are you utilizing your Ward 10 council? What input are they providing, and what are those communication channels like? So still early days, obviously. I've only been elected for a few months now, but we've had one meeting with the Ward 10 council, and I've got one coming up. And so far, I see them as being a huge value add to me to really reflect the differing perspectives across our community that I'm representing.
I think that is amazing. It's innovative, it's creative. It really keeps you in touch with the Ward 10 community in particular. And I feel like as a citizen of Barrie, I want someone to ask me, what I think about things, as part of a collective, of course.
Yes.
Right? So I think that is amazing. And I hope that the other city councillors are asking more questions about that and whether or not it's something that they want to pursue too. I would think that would be something that really helps you in your role.
It does. I think a lot of people looked at it. It's one more thing. Just being a council member is busy. There's lots of meetings and you're sitting on different committees. They thought, oh, it's another committee. But for me, it's been the most valuable asset that I've had, because otherwise I don't know how I would appropriately represent the community and all their needs. The issues that they bring forward to me, are just so helpful, and the solutions they bring forward are also so helpful. So it definitely helps me prioritize where we need to focus and what I need to bring forward to City Council. So yeah, it's been a huge benefit.
That's terrific.
Yeah. And in the application, I actually had a formal application process to apply for it to, again, make sure that it's a diverse group. So they're from differing neighborhoods in our ward, again, different ages, different genders, different identities. So it's been a really, really diverse and eclectic group of people, which is fantastic to work with as well.
Amazing. Good for you. That's very innovative and hasn't been done before. And I think it's fantastic. So I want to switch gears just a little bit and just talk about the process for you in terms of becoming the new councillor for Ward 10. So what does the process look like? Like, where did you seek out your resources and the support you needed to go on that journey?
Yeah, interesting. It was funny because I thought I'd be so connected just with my father having previously been mayor. So I thought, but because he was sort of talking me out of it, he said, if you want to do this, you figure it out. You do it on your own. So some tough love there, but it was exactly what I needed. At the end of the day, if this is something you want to do, it's not difficult, right? Again, it's just making that decision. So for me, it was knocking on doors, right? Anybody can knock on doors. And I started early. As soon as I decided this is what I wanted to do, I got out knocking on doors again, it's my enthusiasm for learning, to meet people, to talk to people, to hear what people's issues were, what their concerns were, what they loved about Barrie, what they loved about living in Ward 10, what they wanted to see more of and less of. So I literally spent from, June to October, every single day, rain or shine, getting outside and knocking on doors. And that was really the extent of my campaign. And I think that's, I had other people running against me who were wonderful candidates, another female as well. So, it was too bad we were both running in the same ward. But I think ultimately that's what it just comes down to, rolling up your sleeves and going for it.
And did you run into any barriers when you were just going through that process?
Yeah, you get a lot of people questioning you, right? What's your experience? Have you ever, you're not the typical what I think people view as a politician. I've walked into recent committee meetings at Simcoe County. I sit on there, and it was a room full of middle-aged white males. And I think that's what people think of your average typical politician. So I think I had to gain credibility. And so, the first round of door knocking, that's what I figured out. And so then I sent out information about myself, right? Here's who I am. Here's my background, so that I'm relatable to people and they get to understand why I'm running and what I bring to the table. So, but I think that's a bit of a challenge just as a woman that I had to overcome that perhaps other people would not have, right? People are questioning your abilities a bit more, I think. But that's okay, right? You got to be confident in what you have to offer.
Well, it definitely gave you the challenge that you knew you had to address, right? And by reaching out to people, putting a face, to your name, really connecting in with people. Because I believe that when people talk with you or any potential candidate, if they can make a connection, then they're bought in, right?
Exactly.
But I think you have really highlighted, sort of our situation here in Barrie, I'd say relatively
Yes.
conservative approach
Yes.
to things, and typically male dominated, city council.
Yeah.
Great movement that has happened with regards to that, and that we hope only continues, right? We would love to see an equal and balanced city council of women and men for sure,
Yes.
but it is better than it ever has been.
Yeah.
And so we just hope that that's going to keep going, right? And I think, going back to our discussion about typical roles for women, there is still work to do in terms of educating our community about, as women, we can define what we're going to take on and what we're not, and make those decisions, make those decisions for ourselves, because people probably don't question those same things when it's a man who comes knocking on their door and says, I'm going to run for municipal politics. They don't say, well, how are you going to take care of your children?
So it's so true. You just hit the nail on the head.
Right.
And how you overcome that, I don't know. I think it's a journey. And I do think, we've come a long way, and I certainly think we have more to come. But I also think it starts with an inner confidence of women too, right? Understanding and knowing that, yes, we can do this.
Yes, absolutely. And how much did you utilize the support of, let's say, Anne-Marie Kungle, in terms of picking her brain and kind of asking her
Absolutely. She was
questions?
my first phone call. I had
Yeah.
coffee with her. And again, it's nice to share women to women, right? What her experience was, what barriers she came up against as well. And I fully believe in supporting the women network, business leaders, municipal leaders. I think it's so, so important. So she was a valuable voice in my journey, a very encouraging voice in my journey. And I'll say, I've been on council, Anne-Marie and Amy Cursor, who's another female representing a ward. The three of us have, really worked well together. And I think we're really trying to represent and make sure that we are bringing a female perspective to council. And we've received a warm welcome in that part, but we're definitely working very well together.
We are about that equal voice of women and men.
Yeah.
And, we're just very thankful that you are the Ward 10 councillor, Bryn, and really excited about, what's going to happen in your ward, and just your voice at city council. Just really, really happy for you. So we have about 1 minute left, and I kind of want to put the floor to you. If there is a young girl and a woman who is watching today who has an interest maybe in municipal politics, what advice, what encouraging words would you like to offer to them?
Go after it. I've always said, even to my own children, dream big. Don't limit yourself in your dreams. Go after what you want and make it happen. And then call me as well, because I'm willing to chat or meet with anybody who's trying to get involved in politics or just business in general as a woman. So
fantastic. Bryn, thank you so much. You're an inspiration. It has been a pleasure to talk with you. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.